Breaking news, Selesnya is the least popular color combination. Very sorry to the 5 people that really love and adore Selesnya, but in all seriousness, this information both blows my mind and isn't surprising at all. Here's a chart going over all the different percentages of colors and popularity. Now, some important things to keep in mind is that this list only tracks decks that were made over the last 2 years for relevancy purposes, and the information only accounts for 3 million decks, which is not taking into account all the decks that you have laying on your desk. Clean up your cards. Now, starting from the top, we have Dimir at 13.2%, we have Golgari at 12.0%, Simic at 10.4%, Rakdos at 10.2%, Izzet at 10.2%, we have Gruul at 9.6%, Orzhov at 8.9%, Azorius at 8.8%, Boros at 8.3%, and then Selesnya at 8.2%. I've taken a lot of time to look over this chart, and I feel as though the issue that a lot of the bottom 4 color combinations have is that they are either 1, lacking color identity, or 2, the payoff just isn't worth it. Identity is such a crucial aspect that helps players resonate and easily understand how to operate within those color combinations. Even with that in mind, if the payoff of using those colors is not worth it, you'll end up at the bottom of this list for sure. Like, how many times can you slap equipment synergies to Boros commanders before you think to yourself, maybe we should switch it up a little bit? And no, I'm not taking a dig at the design team because those guys have a really intense job and I could never, honestly, I just enjoy the game. The top 4 color combinations do an excellent job of being direct at least one of those areas, even if they aren't really interesting. I'm talking about you, Simic. That's enough Simic slander for today. I want to talk about the bottom 4 color combinations and give some deck and identity recommendations. We have Orzhov kicking us off, which I'm extremely surprised to see down here. Orzhov has one of those aspects I mentioned earlier, being color identity, so I'm assuming the payoff isn't super interesting. I would definitely recommend cards like Shadric Silverquill, which is a 5-cost 2/5 with flying and double strike, which is already a pretty good rate, but I also like the fact that it lets you create your own fun and pathways. So you have things in here that allow you to get, creatures if necessary, it gives draw if necessary, and +1/+1 counters. And my second commander would be Rear Ivor, Bane of Bladehold. They are a 4-cost 3/4 with Battle Cry, and it says at the beginning of combat on your turn, the next time a creature would deal combat damage to one or more players' combat, prevent that damage. If that damage is prevented this way, create that many 1/1 Phyrexian Mind artifact creature tokens with Toxic 1. Those were my deck recommendations. As far as the philosophy, Orzhov is pretty clear cut on being sacrifice oriented, so I think it could benefit from things such as Commissar Severina and as well as Brimaz, making the payoff for sacrifice a little different but still strong. Our next color combination is Azorius, which falls in the same line as Orzhov, and although Azorius has its own color identity, the payoff can be a hurdle, especially when trying to close out the game. And for the deck recommendations and also the actual philosophy, I would really like to recommend Heliod the Radiant Dawn, specifically the backside that gives your spells flash and cheapens by the number of cards drawn by your opponents this turn. This card is no joke, especially those of you with class that will put Eldrazi's in here. My second card in this category will be Faramir, that says at the beginning of your end step, choose an opponent. At the beginning of that player's next end step, you draw a card if they didn't attack you. Otherwise, create 3 1/1 white human soldier creature tokens, which is pretty insane, especially when you think about stuff like Anointed Procession. And the reason I chose them for both of the categories, as far as identity and philosophy or color identity, is because they are actively progressing the game. You're not dirtling around with like the balance effects and things of that nature, which I don't think is a bad call just in general, because Brago obviously is super strong. But these allow you to actively be doing things in the middle. And that brings us to Boros. Boros' color identity is fully attached to equipment, which is such a weird concept that a color identity can be associated with one small facet of the game. But there's still hope. With Athari Sun's Glory, that is a 5-cost 3/3 that has flying, lifelink, and haste, and it says whenever it attacks, you get an experience counter, then create a 2/2 rebel creature token that's tapped and attacking for each experience counter that you have on it. Then you may pay 4, tap an untapped rebel you control, and then return a Athari from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. This commander is straight up bonkers. I played against it one time and on turn 6 I got folded, so definitely recommend playing that card. And my second card recommendation would be Joffrey Ghostforge. They are a 5 cost 4/5 that says spirits you control get +1/+1 and have trample and haste. Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, exile it. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that creature except as a spirit in addition to its other types. And then it also has whenever this creature leaves the battlefield, return that exiled creature to your graveyard. Joffrey allows for some fun and interesting gameplay, plus do not sleep on having haste and trample in the command zone as an anthem. As far as the color identity recommendation, Boros is really good at going to the combat step, but it needs like a better way to utilize that, like Nayali. I think that is a really good card as far as being at the helm and being able to actually get things done and accomplished without just having equipment attached to it. I think that if they start utilizing concepts such as Nayali or Adriana, Captain of the Guard, I think that Boros definitely has a bright future ahead. And that brings us to Selesnya. Selesnya is going through a little bit of an identity crisis, but before you change your hair color, there's still hope. There will always be a color combo at the bottom of this list. I don't genuinely believe that Selesnya is in a bad place. It could use some more identity that isn't centered around humans. For one of my deck recommendations, I would suggest Best Soul Nourisher. Best is a 3 cost 1/1 that says whenever one or more other creatures with base power and toughness 1/1 enter the battlefield in your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Best. Whenever she attacks, each other creature you control with base power and toughness 1/1 get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of counters on Best. Best is pretty straightforward. You just put down a bunch of 1/1 tokens and you make them thick and start smacking people. I love when a commander can get into the mix, and honestly she does that really well. Plus tokens and overrun effects, what can go wrong? My second commander recommendation would be Yenna, Red Tooth Regent. They are a 4 cost 4/4 that says pay 2, tap it, choose target enchantment you control that doesn't have the same name as another permanent you control. Create a token that's a copy of it, except it isn't legendary. If that token is an aura, untap Yenna, and then scry 2. Activate only as a sorcery. I want to personally thank Wati for that sorcery clause, but that does not take away from how busted this card is, especially with doubling season effects, parallel lives, and so on and so forth. This card is nuts. As for the color identity, I love the idea of Selesnya being the token/enchantress colors. So if we can get similar cards to Calyx and Galta and Maverin, I think it would be very beneficial in boosting Selesnya's cool points. But genuinely speaking, I chose those cards because I think they do a better job at exemplifying what Selesnya is really good at, which is tokens and then enchantress things. Plus the payoff for it is combat, which is everything that you want to be doing inside of Commander. If you made it this far, thank you so much for taking the time out to watch my video. Genuinely appreciate it. You guys have been really kind with showing support of my previous videos. If you have a take down below, feel free to comment and feel free to follow my socials as well.